Hello and welcome back to Talon 101. This is part 2 of the frame trap samples. This is the intermediate one, so mid-level frame traps. And you're going to be noticing there's a lot of options that you're going to have to remember at a mid-level. So if at like a basic level, you're remembering around 2 to 3 options. At an intermediate, you're probably going to be remembering upwards to 4 to 5 options. So just be prepared for that. So the first option we need to cover is forward 2 into RFF DF4. Because this cannot be stepped. Again, you are +9. There's nothing they can pretty much do in this situation. They can't challenge, they can't step. So if they do decide to challenge, right, it's a free counter hit for you, regardless of their challenge. So boom. And that's amazing. They can't step either. So if they try, we set this to step, they lose. We set this to backdash. That's the safest option. So it's great all around. And before, back in Tekken 7, you would do forward 2 RFF DF4 into RFS 1. This was the mid string. But now this has kind of been removed. It's more of like a mix-up in a sense if you still want to do it. Because you have 1 frame of leeway. Because the move, again, is +5. If it does get blocked. If it does get hit, then you can just like lock with RFS 1 if you want. But we're assuming on block. So at that point, if you do get RFF DF4 to connect, there you think of 2 options to mix up your opponent. That's going to be RFS down 3 for a low and RFS 4 for a mid. Because this is in line of like making it a mid string. However, again, the option does end at -13. But if they are backdashing, they're not punishing this move. That's too far already. So if they just focus on back the entire time, they're not going to punish RFS 4 and you'll run away scot-free. Now, for 16 frame mids, again, RFS 1, you can do that. And if you also want to like remain safe versus the backdash, using RFS 3 slide 4 or flying eagle, the second hit will catch the backdash. So if they're a little bit late as it does whiff, then they can like lose as they're trying to punish you, right? And of course, if you didn't want to go for like that kind of mix-up because you're not sure of like how they're going to react to RFF DF4 or you're not ready for that situation, you can just straight up DF2. So if it does hit, you'll launch them. If they challenge, you'll launch them. And then if they don't do anything, you just go -7. Like even against backdash, I believe, you will lose. However, you can always just replace DF2 with F1+2, but then you're gonna go -9. So like take your pick between DF2 and F1+2 because both those situations are pretty much guaranteed, except DF2 loses to the backdash. And then if you didn't want it, so you have like a mid option that goes into a mix-up, right? And then you have a mid option that would launch, and then you have a mid option that would potentially counter hit. So at that point, you need to add another option so like your opponent would think about stuff. And that's what down 3-4 comes in. Like you can just do forward 2 into down 3-4, and then you can just like lock them in with RFS DF4 afterwards because this does hit. And if not, you can always just do flying eagle. Like that's your situation on hit for forward 2. Still strong, but then RFF DF4 does need some help in this situation. So that's what DF2, F1+2, and down 3-4's job is there to do. I mean, you can add other mids. However, if you do add other mids, the power crush can potentially beat you, I believe. Yeah, just like that. So if you try to go for RFF back 2 at +9, you can lose, but RFF DF4 will stuff this, and 15 frames, you pretty much still win. And of course, down 3-4 will win in this scenario as well, because again, it's a low and power crushes loses 2 lows and grabs. That's the situation on hit for forward 2, but now let's move to the situation on block. So if the opponent does decide to challenge here, there's about 2 things you can do. If you want to like really be greedy and press another button, the first thing is RFF back 4, because this will high crush. So if they press a high, you either will get the +12 or you'll get the counter hit into a heat engager for DF3+4. And then if you didn't want to do RFF back 4 because you didn't think they were going to do a high and you just really wanted to win the situation, then you can do a down jab. A 10 frame down jab or an 11 frame down jab, take your pick whether you want the +6 or the +7. However, these options, the down jabs, would lose to movement. So if the opponent does decide to simply step, you'll lose and then you'll get punished. It's the same thing with like for RFF back 4, as RFF back 4 only tracks towards the right. So at that point, if you don't want to challenge versus a high crush or for whatever button they're about to press, you can always just do forward 2 into movement. And if they do challenge, right, you can potentially make their challenge whiff. So forward 2, movement, punish. So that's the forward 2 mix-up both on hit and on block. The next situation we're going to be looking at is LFS forward 3, the flamingo rocket that Hwoarang inherited from his master. And your first option is to always go for LFS 1. Why LFS1? Because again, you're +4, and if the opponent does decide to challenge with a 10-frame jab, not a 10-frame down jab, a 10-frame jab, you'll win. Now, if they decide to down jab, right? Then at that point, that's when your power crush comes in handy. Like, keep them in check. Off LFS forward 3 or CD3, mainly LFS forward 3 because LFS forward 3 has like more pushback on block. You can't do LFS forward 3 after LFS forward 3 if they do decide to challenge, including LFS back 4-3. However, those are not options for challenges. Those are options for like if the opponent decides to backdash, since LFS 1 would whiff and DF3 will catch them, but again, it's a power crush. So if they decide to grab or do a low, you would lose. So then that's when you can just like do forward 3 again, or back 4-3 as the second hit of back 4-3 would connect after a backdash. But then it is a little bit tricky, so your opponent can whiff punish you in that scenario. Now, if we go to side steps, again, LFS1, as you know earlier, on the CD3 situation, if you watch the basic Hwoarang Frametraps, link in the description below, would lose to any pretty much sidestep option. So if the opponent is stepping towards the left using the existing options that we have, that's when you use LFS forward 3. And then if the opponent will step towards the other side, then that's when you have SSR. LFS DF3-4, because it'll cover a backdash, it'll cover sidestep right, and most importantly, if the opponent decides to challenge with a power crush, a high power crush, then that's when you can win with your power crush instead. So just to double check with the mid power crush to see what happens, you lose, but that's fine. Because you can again remain safe by simply doing LFS1 if they decide to do that and you take your plus frames. Now if they're gonna step towards either side, right? Then at that point, you can just do LFS back 4-3 as that would catch both sidestep left and sidestep right. However, I believe the moment they do walk, that's when things get a little bit iffy. So it's losing here to sidewalk left, and the second hit catches sidewalk right. Now, if the opponent also decides to do a rage art, you only have one option. So if you were trying to default to like LFS1 to like remain safe against a power crush, you will lose. Same thing if you like try to catch backdash, you will lose. Pretty much anything under the sun. So the only time you can beat a rage art in this situation, so again, if the opponent's in rage health, you have to sidestep right and then do LFS back 1. That's the only time you'll beat a rage art. The only time. So you have to commit to that bit. And the issue is SSR in Flamingo. Again, you can't guard in that stance, so any other challenge could potentially beat you. So do take care in that scenario. Onwards to the last frame trap at an intermediate level that we're going to cover is RFF DF4 or RFF 24 or RFF 4. Basically any of the situations that put you at +5 in right flamingo from right foot forward, or I guess from right flamingo, as you can do RFS 24 from right flamingo. There's a couple of things. So your first option on block or on hit is to usually go for RFS F4. On block rather, because on hit this move is just plus as hell. Yeah, plus as hell. So like go for your mid options immediately once these connect. But if it is on block, which is the one we want to focus on the most, you want to go for RFS F4. Why do you want to go for RFS F4 first? Because RFS F4 again does beat all the side steps. So that's sidestep left. This is sidestep right. Changes to sidewalk left, and then sidewalk right. Like they won't win there in that situation. And then also if they're going to step right, you do have a mid to help cover you, and that's mainly RFS 4, but again you're gonna have to go negative on block. So that's again sidestep left, sidestep right, sidewalk left. It loses there, but it only catches side steps but not sidewalk. So they are ducking or just doing a sidestep, not a sidewalk. You can just do RFS 4, and it also does cover backdash. And at that point, you're far more safer on block because of the spacing. The other thing that you can do is RFS 3 slide 4. This is mainly if the opponent is doing a low move or a high crushing move. That's the only time you really use it, because the problem is you're only +5. So if you do go for it on block, you can get floated. So at that point, that's when RFS 4 or RFS F4 come into play. It's mainly if they're low crushing. And then another thing that you can use is RFF 2-1. So if the opponent does decide to use a power crush and you do it off, let's say, any of the sequences, you do RFF 2-1, you're fine. Like so. And of course, you take your plus frames as always. This will always like pretty much remain safe, and the second hit does track towards other sides. The last thing is if you didn't want to do a mid high and you wanted to use a low, the low that you can use in this situation is RFS down 3, because this does catch backdash from any of the +5 situations, like so. And it covers sidestep left, but not sidestep right. Then again, this is a really, really good sidestep, so depending on the character you're facing, this could catch both sides. But yeah, that's the 3 frame traps at mid-level. Again, take it slowly and make sure you're like using one option first to gather information. So to go back to forward 2, if it does get blocked, you can always default to movement as your first option and then gather information from there. Or you can go straight for a down jab, and if it does whiff or you do win, it's just like, okay, they're challenging or they're stepping, right? Or they're low crushing me. Because at this point, you have to like apply the options properly so that you know how to like continue hitting the opponent. Most especially if you're stuck in like Flamingo. Because if you're in right foot forward or left foot forward, you do have the option to like just simply remain safe. But even then, timing is very important. And if you are stuck in a stance, well, you kind of have to press a button. You have no choice. Again, that's all the cheese I have for this video. Again, I've been Frontier, and thank you for watching.